It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
We're going to move on, though. We're going to get into the facts. And like I said, our first story, I actually want to work through the transcript of the conversation between the killer and his lover. I'm sure you've all seen it by now. And we'll talk about some of these conversations. Every day we're learning a little bit more about the suspected assassin, Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old. And the profile that we have of him so far, it's incomplete, to say the least. And we talked about this last night. The FBI has given us a killer. They've given us a suspect. He's this 22-year-old, extremely online, apparently left-wing, Redditor, gamer. He's apparently gay. He's got a boyfriend. This is the extent of our knowledge of this person. And the reason I say the picture is incomplete is because we're missing a couple of things here. One is the digital footprint. There does not seem to be any kind of digital record of this person's politics or any kind of social profile of this person. We don't have a YouTube channel. We don't have an Instagram, a Twitter. We don't have a Discord profile. We don't have private messages, notwithstanding the ones that were published today. And that's curious, because you would expect that a political radical that goes and murders a high-profile political target, you'd expect a young, extremely online person of that sort to leave behind a trail. And we don't have anything like that. And we should. At this point in time, the internet sleuths should have been able to find this. You're able to find it with all the other ones. All the other school shooters, all the other mass killers of the past 5 or 6 years, within hours of the apprehension of the suspect, whether dead or alive, you've seen this movie play out. Internet sleuths on 4chan or Twitter are able to locate the person's forum posts, their Twitter, their YouTube. We're able to see who they're following, what they said, what their politics were. Not with Thomas Crooks last year, not with this guy, which is interesting. Here's the other piece of the story we're missing. We're missing the story of how a seemingly normal 22-year-old, no history of mental illness, no criminal record, and as I said, no digital footprint. How does a mild-mannered 22-year-old, apparently a bright kid, like I said, with no history of transgressive, asocial, antisocial behavior from a good, intact family, we don't have any clue of how that person becomes so deranged they plot a high-profile political assassination. And that begs a secondary question, which is, if this person did not go down that path alone, did someone else send him down that path? A group, an accomplice, maybe, and it is a possibility, an intelligence agency. I'm not going to say that that's likely, but I'm not going to rule that out either. That's not impossible. It's implausible. I think stretches maybe belief, but it's not impossible. So we have an incomplete profile of who this person is. It's actually raising more questions than answering at this point. But one thing we're learning is apparently about a conversation that was had in the moments before he turned himself over to the police. And this is a story from NBC. It says, quote, "The day conservative activist Charlie Kirk was gunned down while debating students on a Utah college campus, the man eventually charged with his murder sent his roommate a text message. Tyler Robinson wrote, 'Stop what you're doing, look under my keyboard.' The roommate, whom Robinson referred to as my love, who we now know as Lance Twiggs, his transgender boyfriend, He uncovered the note and it said, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk. I am going to take it." And this, by the way, is the note that Kash Patel has been referring to. Kash Patel, the FBI director, intimated that the FBI had encountered evidence that a note was left behind, which contained a confession. They said, however, the note was destroyed. And a lot of people said, well, how can this be? How does the FBI know about a note and the contents of that note, which apparently contained an all-important confession, if that note had also been destroyed and was not in the possession of the FBI? People said, how's that possible? The note doesn't exist, and yet you know it exists and what's in it? How is that possible? Well, we now know that the killer texted the roommate, "Hey, look under my keyboard. I left you a note." And the roommate took a picture of it and then discarded it. And I would imagine that law enforcement digitally retrieved the message. Maybe the roommate kept the picture and they discovered it on the roommate's device. Maybe the roommate attempted to delete it, but they recovered it later. I imagine that is how that happened. But they also discovered private messages between the suspected killer and his roommate. I will read you the transcript. This is alleged. This is the conversation. After reading the note, the roommate replied and said, "What? You're joking, right?" "You're joking." Robinson replied, "I am still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet." Fucking LARPer. Why? It really sucks that Charlie Kirk got killed by this guy, because this guy's the biggest loser, it seems like, on earth, if any of this is even real. He writes, "Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I got to grab my rifle. To be honest, I had hoped to keep the secret till I died of old age. Sorry to involve you." The roommate replied, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" He replied, "I am. I'm sorry." The roommate replied, "I thought they caught the person." He said, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude that interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." The roommate replied, "Why? Why did I do it? Yeah. I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence other than the written confession that you left behind, that you're in the process of writing. Other than the weapon, I'll have left no evidence of the crime other than the handwritten confession I left under my keyboard and the conversation where I'm confessing still right now in writing on the internet as we speak." Because that makes sense. He writes, "Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." The roommate replies, "How long have you been planning this?" He says, "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there's a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it." Robinson replies, or he goes on rather, he says, "I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with." It's interesting the way that he's kind of narrating his escape. Because if you review the timeline as we understand it so far, the discrepancies in the timeline are concerning his escape. Specifically, the change of clothes, because he's wearing a different outfit when he's captured on the Ring doorbell camera walking up to the venue than the outfit he's wearing when he escapes and leaves the venue. So one of the discrepancies in the official story is the change of clothes. Another discrepancy is the planted weapon. How did the weapon get from concealed on his person to constructed on the roof, potentially deconstructed on the way down and reconstructed in the woods? all of the questions and discrepancies about the official narrative are concerning these details. And inside this conversation, he seems to be narrating all the details almost as if to explain them to us. But how could he know that we would be reading them? It seems like he's narrating the events and connecting one event to the next and resolving all of the inconsistencies and discrepancies and questions, basically tying it up in a neat little bow. Because up until this point, those are the questions people are asking. Why did he change clothes? How did the weapon get in the woods? Conveniently, now we have this little narration, this expository narration from the killer, as if to wash away any doubts. That's a lot of detail. Why is he confessing all of this? Does that sound natural to you? You've just committed the most high-profile assassination of the 21st century in America. You evaded law enforcement. You think you got away with it. I'm going to get online. I'm going to get on my phone, and I'm going to text the whole narrative. I'm going to text where the evidence is. I'm going to confess that I did it again and again. I'm going to say how I did it. I'm going to talk about my escape plan. Here's where I am. Here's where I'll be. This is how I did it. This is where I left the gun. This is where I left my clothes. Maybe. He is an amateur after all. He's a 22-year-old young man. I assume this is his first high-profile assassination. Just a guess. Maybe he's nervous. Maybe he thinks he got away with it. Doesn't need to be careful. But that's the part that sticks out to me. The way that it's, and everyone else has commented the same thing, it seems expository. That's the tone. Anyway, he goes on, he writes, I didn't have the ability or time to bring the weapon with me. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints, which of course they did. Didn't wear gloves. How the fuck will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Only thing I left, I hope there's no fingerprints on the rifle I left in the woods inside a, what color was it again, officer? Blue? The blue towel I left it in. He writes, remember how I was engraving bullets? The fucking messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge, ooh woo on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. That really fucking sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. Delete this exchange. Nice OPSEC. My dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me right now. I'm not answering. Since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. You are all I worry about, love. I'm much more worried about you. Don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. So this is the exchange that we got today. And, look, here's the thing. If we are reading a conspiracy into it, there's a lot about this that doesn't make a ton of sense. People have pointed these things out. It appears like the language is stilted. The word choice, the detail that's provided, the level of detail. People are saying that the way that the conversation reads, it doesn't read like an organic conversation. He says, my vehicle instead of my car. He launches into all these specifics about the weapon, where it is, about his escape, about all these things that would he retrieve those pieces of information for the purpose of this conversation organically? Now, the question is, what would be the purpose of fabricating a conversation like this? Either law enforcement had him write this under duress, or maybe he fabricated the conversation for law enforcement to discover. People are saying that maybe the conversation was effectively a performance, that maybe they were sitting next to each other, or maybe they talked about it over the phone and this was his way of exonerating the partner, or his way of exonerating any other accomplices, as if to say, hey, attention everyone, I acted alone. If law enforcement is reading this message in the future, I acted alone. Don't arrest the love of my life. Don't arrest my accomplices. To a conspiratorial mind, maybe that is how this sounds. We also must give a fair hearing to Occam's razor, the most simple explanation. He's a nervous amateur. And maybe this is just a big self-report. I mean, certainly that is possible. We have to say, I would say that some of the things going against the conspiratorial idea is that he asked the partner, remember you saw me engraving the bullets? Now, if the purpose of this dialogue, of the script, was to exonerate the partner, why would he ask the partner, do you remember when you saw me engraving bullets? Because that sentence, that phrase alone is going to warrant attention and interest from law enforcement. So, Lance Twiggs, you saw your boyfriend writing messages in bullets like the other infamous assassin from a year ago? You didn't know he was going to use him to kill a high-profile person? Why or why not? What did you know and when did you know it? If it was scripted, then it's got to be perfect. If it was scripted either by Tyler Robinson, the suspected killer, or by law enforcement, then it's got to be airtight, because that's what a script is. It's intentional. But if, on the other hand, it was nervous and sloppy, then you could say maybe he was just spilling his guts. He's being hunted by law enforcement. He can confide in no one, tell no one. He's under duress. They're talking about the death penalty. And people say, well, he evaded law enforcement. He's a professional. I would say that one of the major things that we have to consider about this killing is that there was nothing really professional about it. They shot Charlie in the neck. Now, if you're shooting someone from a long distance, you aim for the center of mass. You aim for the chest, the torso. So if he got hit in the neck, it seems like the killer did not account for the bullet drop and was maybe aiming for the head, which is not what a professional would probably do. And if they were aiming for the head, they would hit the head. The neck is a strange place to strike. But it's hard to say. I'm not a ballistics expert. What's more, there was DNA evidence found on the gun. He did not, contrary to what we initially thought, evade all security cameras. He was captured on security footage from the perch where he took the shot and walking up to and leaving the venue. So this is clearly not a professional job. It was an amateur job. The roof was accessible by a pedestrian walkway. The event had no security checkpoint, no perimeter established. And as we've all witnessed, the law enforcement response was sloppy. They arrested the wrong guy. Then they arrested a second wrong guy. Then they announced they had no idea who did it, and they asked everybody to turn the person in. So is it possible that the same guy that didn't use gloves, the same guy that walked right in front of the cameras, that same guy might also think that if he just deleted his Discord messages that he might get away with it? I mean, it's possible. We don't know. We just don't know. We don't have all the information. And I assume we'll learn more as time goes on. To me, as it stands right now, where I'm sitting, to the extent that there is a conspiracy, it seems like it might be a larger plot involving Tyler Robinson's peers. I think that probably Tyler Robinson was the trigger man. I think he pulled the trigger. It was his gun. To the extent that there is a conspiracy, I think it involves probably a larger social circle surrounding him. I think potentially the partner who witnessed him engraving the bullets. I think potentially the people that were in his driveway or parkway with out-of-state license plates in the days leading up to the attack, the recipients of the message he sent on Discord. And of course, there is the nugget of evidence. They said that he was on the phone shortly after he pulled the trigger. Who was he on the phone with? Was he in a voice chat? With how many people? With whom? And the FBI says that there are more than 20 people that are persons of interest that the FBI is looking into and investigating. I'd be very curious to see what this social circle looks like. Who were the recipients of the message? Which Discord servers was he in? Who is this partner? What's his story? And who are the other people that might be involved or might have had advanced knowledge of it? To me, that is interesting. And you have to think about in terms of a conspiracy, clearly the bullet was fired from that perch. I don't buy into these theories that it was a palm pistol from the side. That is insane to me. Some people are saying the camera was a gun. I mean, get real. Some people are saying that the video camera recording the event looked like a giant gun. Come on now. So I believe he was the trigger man. That was the murder weapon. That was the perch. The question is then, did he act alone? And I think the answer to that is probably no. That's a transcript. But I do want to move on. I want to get into some of these other aspects of it. That's just the latest on his killing by itself. I don't know how much of this we'll get into tonight because it's just so much material all the time. But I want to talk a little bit now about this Groyper angle. We didn't get a chance to talk about it last night, but this was extremely distressing to me and very shocking. Of course, the question, which is unresolved still, is who actually killed Charlie Kirk? And as we've talked about so far tonight, there are those that blame the state of Israel. They say the killer's motivation had something to do with the foreign state of Israel. Some are saying that it is this Tyler Robinson figure, and there's much debate about who he was and what his politics were. Over the weekend, though, there seemed to be a concerted effort to push the narrative that the killer, Tyler Robinson, the suspected killer, was actually a Groyper, a follower of mine, and motivated by far-right ideology. He was the gunman, but he didn't kill Charlie Kirk over transgenders or some left-wing ideology, but because of a far-right ideology that saw Charlie Kirk as too radical. And on its face, this is completely ridiculous. First of all, because the Groypers, the far right, our life's mission practically for the past 7 years has been to debate Charlie Kirk. Groypers are showing up to Turning Point events to ask him to debate me. That's literally what they have done for 6 years. And that is all that they have done, is attend Charlie Kirk's events in disguises, wearing MAGA hats, pretending to be Jews, leftists, Republicans, to, at the last minute on the microphone, say, debate Nick Fuentes, debate, why won't you debate Nick Fuentes? For 6, 7 years. That's not the meme, but literally that's the duration of time. And we're going to be respectful about it. We're not going to say 6, 7. But for literally 6 or 7 years, that is all that Groypers have ever done, is ask about our differences of opinion on Israel, on immigration, on social issues. Right up until a few weeks ago, there was a recent Turning Point event where one of my followers got to the front of the Q&A line and said that exact same thing. Will you debate Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes? So that's in the first place. Second of all, you have the only evidence about the killer's ideology so far, which is the markings on the bullets. We knew about this on, I believe, Thursday or Friday at the latest. And the markings on the bullet, the engravings, there were 4. 2 of them were furry memes. They were Reddit furry transgender memes about a bulge That's the bulge that a person's penis makes, a cross-dresser's penis would make. That is a furry transgender meme on Reddit. There were two political memes, and they could not be more unambiguous. One said, "Catch this, fascist," presumably saying, "Catch this bullet, you fascist." And the second said, "Ciao Bella." Well, who would call Charlie Kirk a fascist? Who would even be dumb enough to think Charlie Kirk was a fascist? To the far right, Charlie Kirk is a lot of things. He's not a fascist. To the people further to the right than Charlie Kirk, well, by its very definition, Charlie Kirk is too moderate, too liberal, too progressive. What were our criticisms of Charlie Kirk? That he was too pro-gay, that he was too pro-immigration, that he was too pro-Israel. Those were our critiques of Charlie Kirk. Not that he was a fascist or a racist or a Nazi. Who would consider Charlie Kirk to be too far right? The people further to his right or the people far to his left? Who wouldn't consider Charlie Kirk to be a fascist? Obviously, the far left. And it should be said, Charlie Kirk was not a fascist at all. He was a ballot chaser. He was an electioneer. He was running Turning Point students. He would go to college campuses and debate leftists. That's not what fascists do. The fascist brown shirts or black shirts, they fight communists in the streets. That is what they're known for. Anybody that idolizes the fascists of the 30s or 40s, brown shirts and black shirts, they seize power. They beat communists up in the streets. They use the government to make society the way they want it to be. Charlie Kirk's motto was "Big government sucks." That's your fascist? Socialism sucks. Big government sucks. Free market, free enterprise. That's not a fascist at all. And anyway, we're farther to the right. We identify as farther to the right. Our criticisms of him is that he's too moderate. So who considers him a fascist? Antifa, communists. They consider Ben Shapiro a Nazi, and he's a Jew. They consider Charlie Kirk a fascist, and he's effectively a center-right liberal. So it could not be more on it. Who's calling Charlie Kirk a fascist? Anti-fascists. What did the second political inscription read? It said Ciao Bella. What is that? An anti-fascist anthem. Which, by the way, I have never heard of until that was made public last week. I know this is hard to believe, but, Groypers, the far right, we're not really into anti-fascist European LARPing. Like, apparently that's an Antifa song from Italy from the 1960s. It's an obscure Antifa communist rally song, a very important one for the left, from Italy in the 60s. You think that far right nationalists, Christian nationalists, are into the Antifa lore like that? So go figure. The two political messages are calling Charlie Kirk a fascist and an anti-fascist song from Italy in the 1960s. People saw these inscriptions and said, he's a far-right Groyper. How does that even begin to make sense? Well, they said that the shooter was a gamer like the Groypers, okay? They said that in 2018, he dressed up as the Squatting Slav. Squatting Slav is a meme that Slavic people wear an Adidas tracksuit and they squat and smoke cigarettes and drink vodka. Well, idiot boomer leftists found an iteration of the Squatting Slav meme where a Pepe frog is dressed up like the Squatting Slav, and they confused Pepe for Groyper and said that that's a Groyper meme. Wearing an Adidas tracksuit and squatting is a Groyper. And, you know, El Reeve explained this on CNN. It was explained in Axios. These are three separate memes. They're three different things. There's a squatting Slav, which has nothing to do with politics or Groyper or Pepe. It's its own thing, and it's like 10 years old. Squatting Slav is the meme that Slavic people squat on their heels with vodka and cigarettes with a newsboy hat, whatever you call those stupid hats. That's its own thing. There's a YouTube channel called Squatting Slav. It's a joke about Slavic people. Then there's Pepe. There's Pepe the Frog. That happens to be the most popular emote on Twitch. It is a ubiquitous meme. For a time, it meant the far right, but it's just one of these central memes now. Like Wojak, like other things, Trollface. Pepe is its own thing. And Pepe is different from Groyper. Groyper is its own thing. And we didn't appropriate Groyper until 2019. Now they took him dressed as Squatting Slav. They saw Pepe mixed with Squatting Slav and said, oh, that's the mascot of the Groypers. Not understanding that these are three different things from three different eras, one not connected to the other. Then, in terms of the specific inscriptions, they said that Ciao Bella, they found some Groyper playlist on Spotify from a random user that had 5 followers and said that a remix of Ciao Bella is on that playlist. And then that went from being some obscure playlist from somebody nobody even knows to now that's a Groyper anthem. That's the Groyper playlist. And that is one of our anthems. And look, music has been a part of this movement for a long time. We actually had anthems. During the Groyper War, we had anthems. It was That's Life from the Joker movie. Because of all the Joker memes, the movie came out October 3rd, 2019, I think. And Jesus is King, the Kanye West album that came out in the same month. 2 years later, we actually had an official playlist. And there were no Antifa theme songs on there from the 60s in Italy. It was all like throwback Zoomer music, indie, alternative. It was Miley Cyrus. So it's like we had anthems for Groyper War. We had a White Boy Summer playlist. Anyway. But what was the most incredible about this conspiracy theory, it's not how, and I'm just going through some of the factual stuff at the outset. What's incredible about this whole narrative that was spun up, the reason we're talking about it is that you would expect that something so baseless, something so ridiculous would just be confined to an obscure corner of the internet. You might see it on Blue Sky. You might see a post on Reddit with 5 upvotes, spinning something like that. But this became like mega viral over the weekend. Posts on Facebook and X and Reddit were getting millions of views. It was reported in Reuters like it was the news. It was reported in Vanity Fair like it was a fact. There were memes about it. Like I said, I had a dozen people call me up and say, my mom found out what a Groyper is because of all this slop, and they're asking me if I knew the killer. And I cannot shake the feeling that that is coordination. Because something that baseless, something that ridiculous, it's plausible that some boomers, obviously boomers have no internet literacy. They have no meme literacy. They are tapped out. They know nothing. So they see some resistance liberals, some blue anon conspiracy account post. Did you guys know that Charlie Kirk has enemies on his right and they have Groyper and here's Squatting Slav? And these boomers that learned what a Groyper was 2 minutes ago say, I know all about you guys. That's plausible. But for that to get millions and millions of views, that stings to me like this was botted, like this was promoted, like this came from the top down. And it really makes you wonder. The right wing blames the far left for the killing. The right wing is blaming trannies. The right wing is blaming Antifa, the John Brown Gun Club. And it's not even clear, by the way, that any of that was involved. It's not factual yet. What we know now is that some liberal, cisgender white guy, and I say cisgender, he's not trans. He had a trans boyfriend, fair enough. So he's part of the LGBT community. What we know so far is some gay white guy did this. The right wing is blaming the far left. The left wing somehow, implausibly, is blaming the far right. And I almost feel like, is there some kind of plot here? Is there some kind of, because wouldn't that make a lot of sense that the right wing takes out the far left and the left wing takes out the far right? And even though the killer, we haven't heard from him. We don't really know anything about him. We don't even know if he acted alone. Some say he's not even the gunman. Both the far right and far left are being implicated and are being attacked. Will they be taken out before we even know any of the information? Was that all part of the plan? Maybe was that a pre-existing plan to frame the far right for this? Did they think that, and think about it this way, this is interesting. They say that the suspected killer, Tyler Robinson, was going to commit suicide. What if he committed suicide on Thursday? We would now never know. What if he committed suicide on Thursday? Dead men tell no tales. Would the far right be blamed? Would the Groypers be cracked down on? Would the government shut down the Groypers? Would I be implicated? Did someone intervene to save his life and deliver him to law enforcement? Now he's on suicide watch in the prison. If this guy gets killed in prison or kills himself, I repeat myself, there's going to be a big problem. And I said this last week. This is why it's very important not to do anything hasty. This is why it's very important not to do anything drastic too soon. Because we are in the fog of war right now. We are in a war. And the fog of war is heavy and dense and thick. And in the fog of war, we find that the far left and the far right are being blamed for the same thing, the assassination of a center-right guy. I don't like it. It stinks to me. It stinks that something with no evidence like this was being promoted in Reuters by some Jewish researcher. And this narrative is being promoted on Facebook and X and everywhere. And you know who was the first person to push this out there? Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo was the first person to push the idea that it might have been a Groyper. Milo, who has also conspicuously gained 200,000 followers on X in the past 12 hours. Does that sound normal? Milo, who Elon Musk replied to on Twitter, framing me as a Fed twice in July. Who Eric Prince, who is in bed with all these people like Ehud Olmert and the Israelis and Palantir and all of it. Eric Prince replied to Milo on Wednesday when he said, we need to get Eric Prince to protect the president. We need Eric Prince to protect everybody. Why is this guy now conspicuously being promoted everywhere? And he was the first one to try to frame me. Here's the question. Was the assassination of Charlie Kirk regime change within the online right wing? Ben Shapiro said he's going to pick up the blood-stained microphone from Charlie Kirk's cold, dead hands. Milo says, I'm coming out of retirement. Was this regime change? By the way, Milo is a Jew. Milo is a pro-Israel Jew. And if you look into his lobbying firm, he's in bed with Karen Giorno, a Zionist creature from Florida, who's tight with Susie Wiles, the campaign manager of Bibi Netanyahu. He's working with Ron Coleman. He's working with the top rabbi in Omaha, Nebraska. Those are the people in Milo's lobbying firm. This guy's gonna, so Charlie Kirk, a goy, Charlie Kirk, a questioning, disgruntled goy, is now going to be replaced by either Ben Shapiro, the Jewish Zionist, or Milo, the gay pedophile Jewish Zionist / drag queen. Anybody find that a little conspicuous? That narrative framing the Groypers came from him first, right before his conspicuous botted surge in following, his promotion by Elon Musk, among others, that now he's going to do the campus tour. And who's going to help him do that? Where's the money? Where's the sponsorship coming from? I think that's something very interesting to watch. Something very interesting to watch and pay very close attention to. Who is promoting Milo? I'd also ask the question, and maybe this goes a little bit further. Earlier in the year, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Milo, and Elon tried to frame me as a Fed. It didn't work. They said I was some federal operative. I'm the real anti-Semite. I'm a creepy Jew hater, blah, blah. That's what Tucker said. That didn't work. That backfired immensely. Charlie Kirk gets shot in the head, in the neck. And then there's this narrative coming from the same group saying it was the Groypers. Now step aside, Nick and Charlie Kirk. It's time for Ben Shapiro and Milo to take center stage. Tucker and Candace reassure us with Max Blumenthal, the Jewish leftist and son of Sidney Blumenthal, that Charlie didn't hate Israel or the Jews. He just didn't like Netanyahu. Something's not right here. Something is not right here. Something is. And then, by the way, when I tried to defend myself, I said this on, I think, Sunday. On Sunday, I said, I'm being framed. Reuters, which is one of the preeminent newswire sources in the world, Reuters said, the guy's a Groyper. I said, hey, I'm being framed right now. Candace Owens is in my reply saying you're making it about you. You're a victim. Well, hold on, Candace. You think the Israelis did it. If I'm being framed for it, you don't think I should be refuting that? I can't defend myself? So Milo pushed the story. I defend myself. Candace attacks me for defending myself. The whole thing stinks. It stinks. And I don't like it. And I don't know if something more is going on. You know, a plausible explanation is that, look, a power vacuum opened up and everybody's fighting to fill it now. Everybody and their brother recognizes the opportunity. The king has passed, and now everyone is rushing in to claim the crown. I get it. That's plausible. But this whole blaming it on the Groypers, yeah, that seems like the definition of a psyop. It doesn't seem like some... If this was organic, you might see one unhinged leftist say that and then everyone forgets about it. But for this to gain as much traction as it did, such that the plurality of people believe a Groyper killed him, that stinks like a psyop to frame me. And then you kill two birds with one stone. You get the disgruntled normie Charlie Kirk, and then you get the far right, you know, the real deal opposition, Nick Fuentes. And who fills the void? A new dialectic, the Jew Ben Shapiro and the gay Jew Milo. And these are going to be your options. So the old dialectic was the goy Charlie Kirk and the goy Nick Fuentes. Kirk is dead. Fuentes is framed for it. New dialectic, the Jew Shapiro, the gay Jew Milo. And I guess we're supposed to watch that show ad infinitum. By the way, that was the same show that we got in 2016. Both Breitbart alum, Milo and Shapiro, both came from Breitbart. Do you remember that? Ben Shapiro was at Breitbart until Michelle Fields got pushed over by Corey Lewandowski. Milo was the creation of Breitbart. Do you know who funded Breitbart? Rebecca Mercer. Rebecca Mercer provided the seed money to start Breitbart. Rebecca Mercer is the sponsor of Candace Owens' husband, George Farmer. Rebecca Mercer handpicked Candace Owens' husband, George Farmer, to run Parler. And she and Farmer were like this with Nigel Farage. And how did Steve Bannon wind up running Breitbart? And I like Steve Bannon. I like what he's been saying lately. But, you know, they call it Breitbart. Who is it named after? Andrew Breitbart. But did you know something? Andrew Breitbart never ran Breitbart because he mysteriously died right before it was created. Go figure. Almost exactly like Charlie Kirk in some ways. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Dangerous times, cloak and dagger stuff, shadowy stuff. I don't like any of these people. I don't trust them. And you know what else? Milo, not fucking American. You will never be American, you Jewish cocksucker. You will never be American. Candace Owens' husband, not American. Go the fuck home. Elon Musk, not American. None of these people are American. I don't like them. I don't trust them. They're trying to frame me now, all of a sudden. Trying to get us to fight the left, trying to get the left to kill me. Elon said it was attempted murder that people are posting people's addresses on Twitter. Where was that energy when my address, which was spread by Milo, was all over Twitter for weeks and got 50 million views and someone tried to murder me? Where was that energy then? Now it's attempted murder. These people have been trying to kill me and frame me and discredit me for the past 15 months. And this Groyper framing, this Groyper frame job feels very similar to all the rest of it, and I don't like it. So be on high alert because there's a lot of misdirection, a lot of deception, a lot of dishonesty. So that's the Groyper angle. As far as the Charlie Kirk database, we'll have to get into that tomorrow because we're out of time tonight. But that's my message. Be on guard because I do believe, as I said, I don't believe that Israel killed Charlie Kirk necessarily, but he clearly was questioning. He clearly was chafing. There's no doubt about that. And at the end of the day, you know, he said something very important. And I loved what he said, actually. This one thing that he said I actually loved. He said, Megan, I'm an American. He said, what do they expect from me? He said, I love Israel and so on. He said, but I'm American. That's what counts to me, actually. You know, I did a collaboration this afternoon. I was talking to somebody. I said, politically, I identify as American. I don't identify as right or left, although I am right wing. Politically, I am American. I am an American-born American. And I like what Kirk said. He said, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not Israeli, I'm American, and it seems like I'm not allowed to criticize Israel. That's the same energy we should all have, and we should question any of these foreigners, foreign influence. Foreigners that were not born here, that are not from here. I don't care if they're from Britain. I don't care where the fuck they're from. If they're not from American, they can shut the fuck up and go home. This is America. And Charlie Kirk, whatever you want to say about him, he was 100% real American. He was from Arlington Heights. I know that area very well. That guy was 100% American. He might have been pro-Israel, but he was born in America. Rest of them, I don't trust. British people coming in here. Russian money, Qatari money, Israeli money, all this foreign cash. You know, I don't buy it for 1 second, man. So anyway, something's not right there, but I do want to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say. The framing of Nick Fuentes. Well, they had us in the first half, that's for sure, but now it seems obvious that it's going to come out that the guy's a leftist and will be exonerated. But that doesn't mean they didn't try. It seems like they tried it, and maybe that was the whole plan from the start. Take out Charlie, then you get the Groypers, or maybe they capitalized on it and killed two birds with one stone. You knock out Kirk. Well, we'll knock Nick out at the same time. You thought you liked Nick Fuentes. How about this gay Jew? How about this gay Jew that brags about having sex with black men and wears drag? Yeah, that sounds awesome. Great, thanks. Got canceled for pedophilia. Awesome. He's coming out of retirement from what? Being a pedophile or something? I'm coming out of retirement. Do people forget you got canceled for being a pederast, for being a gay pederast? Sort of interesting. But anyway, we're going to move on. We'll take a look at the super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say.
All right, so we're going to get right into it. Nick's discussing a lot. I have a lot of these same questions. You know, why is there no digital footprint or social profile? Why do we not know more information? And why does this seem to be a reoccurring theme when it comes to these people that commit these assassinations or assassination attempts? It seems very MK Ultra-ish to me. And I looked up MK Ultra very quickly in ChatGPT, and all of these people that come out that are either trying to assassinate people or actually follow through, they look empty. They almost look, somebody was clowning the other day saying, well, actually they were being serious in some ways, saying that these people look like AI. Like, what if there's some advanced technology here? I see it more as the MK Ultra standpoint, but these people just seem empty, as if they're just being programmed. It almost makes me think back to like the Born Supremacy stuff. And they say a lot of these movies tell the future, but when you think about MK Ultra, when you think about the government perhaps using mind control over a lot of these people, it just makes you wonder. It really just makes you wonder. So I have these questions about Tyler Robinson, the same things that that Nick said. So then when you look at this whole Groyper angle, and I'm going to leave a video here because I think Nick mentioned it. If he didn't, doesn't matter. I'm going to mention it. As far as Ben Shapiro, there's a clip of Ben Shapiro on Bill Maher, and Ben Shapiro is saying, like, one thing that we do know is it was a leftist. It was a leftist. And then Bill Maher brings about some information, and Bill Maher saying, like, we don't know ish, we don't know anything, like pretty much telling Ben, like, yo, shut up, stop doing that. It happened 2 days ago. And Bill Maher brings up the fact that some people now are accusing the Groypers. Now, he doesn't mention Groypers. Of course, Ben Shapiro does. But he says that there's a group of people that are far right or that didn't think that Charlie Kirk was right enough. And then Ben Shapiro says, yeah, the Groypers. And Bill Maher responds and says, well, are you sure it's not them? And Ben Shapiro, after saying one thing we know for sure is it's somebody of the left, 30 seconds later says, oh, well, yeah, I'm not sure of that.
If it is a shooting of a Republican politician, it is very likely to be a trans Antifa Marxist shooter.
That is just not true. We don't know what this kid is.
We do know this kid was of the left. We do know that.
We do know what?
That this kid was of the political left. That is according to contemporaneous reporting from The Guardian as well as Tablet Magazine today.
It's 2 days out. We don't know shit, Ben.
But
we don't know shit. They never do. The internet is undefeated in getting it wrong to begin with.
It's not about the internet. That's about the actual reporting by mainstream accepted. The Guardian is not a right-wing.
Here's what we heard. Here's what I was told so far, and I'll tell you what was wrong. First, I heard he's a registered Republican. Not true. Okay. Then he was a donor to Trump. Not true. His father works in the sheriff's office. Not true. There was a picture of him wearing a pro-Trump shirt. Not true. Member of the Democratic Socialists of America. Not true. We don't know what he is.
Well,
how are you so sure he's of the left? Now, I agree when you write on a bullet, What did he write on the bullet? Catch
this fascist, which is also a gamer thing.
Okay, but now I'm hearing he may have been part of that group for whom Charlie Kirk was not right-wing enough.
You mean the Groypers? Yes. I mean, so that would.
You're sure he's not that?
I'm not sure that he's not that.
A minute ago you were sure what he was.
Hold on, Bill. Hold on. Okay, because I've been.
You were.
It's like this just seems to be orchestrated, just like Nick said. It was all left until you had the opportunity, Ben Shapiro, to blame it on a Groyper, to blame it on Nick Fuentes. And even as I'm hearing everything that Nick is discussing and bringing up a bunch of these things that I was not aware of, whether it's Milo, whether it's Elon Musk, and then I think about how Tucker and Candace have been pushing against Nick, they are all scared of Nick. They are all scared of Nick. And when Nick says he doesn't trust any of these people, I have to admit that when I'm watching Nick, I don't have a question of whether or not he's being genuine. I'm going to do my fact checking. I'm going to do my due diligence, and I'm not going to, I mean, you've heard the feedback that I've given in the past. I don't just agree with everything that he says. And I like to call out certain things because we all should be called out on certain things, especially when we're clear on the standards that we set. So whether that's a religious standard or whether that's a different standard, if we're not aligned with that, then we should be called out. Neither here nor there. These people are trying to paint him in a picture so that people don't even consume his information. That's what I'm trying to say. These people are trying to paint him in a picture, so therefore we won't even consume his information. I just got a message from one of my homegirls who's been watching the show that we do for a very long time, and she said that she can't watch these Nick Fuentes episodes. And she's consumed his information and that he's just full of hate and he's full of all the... And I'm like, okay, that's how the conversation started off. So I'm like, okay, well, at least you consumed his content. You gave him a chance. You don't like him. Cool. But then as the conversation went on, I realized more and more that she had not consumed his content, that she was only relying on, oh, well, the things that I see in passing on Instagram. And what's so funny is what's happening between Candace, Milo, Charlie Kirk, in a lot of ways I'll explain, where all of these people are using their hatred for Nick Fuentes to come together against the greater enemy. That's exactly what she did. She sent me these videos of people that, in my opinion, without going into too much detail, she would never respect those type of people's opinion outside of when it's proving her point about somebody that she already does not like. You get what I'm saying? So it seems like a lot of these people are just banding together to confront Nick Fuentes, who they know is genuine and is not going to back down. He's already shown since a young age that you can't buy him. He's not going to be bought and paid for. He's going to stand on the things that he believes in, whether we agree with them or not. I think we can say that about him, especially compared to a lot of these other people like Tucker, who used to be on the mainstream platform, now is turning, to the other side. Candace Owens used to be pushing for a lot of these pro-Israel agendas. Now she's on the other side, especially considering what happened with her at Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro, but she was already pushing against it, to be totally honest. And then she got fired. But a lot of these people who were taking checks from a lot of the people that they now talk about, Nick Fuentes was never that. He was never that. And I think that puts fear in a lot of these other people. I really do believe that. So the whole Groyper angle, I really do just believe that that's just something that they're putting in place to take another shot at him. Tucker took a shot at Nick when he was interviewing Candace. I just think that this is another shot that they're trying to take to try to get rid of him. Now, Nick makes it clear that he does not think, I think he said at the end, that he doesn't think that Israel's responsible for Charlie Kirk's passing necessarily. However, a lot of this stuff that he's confronting, it doesn't take away from that. It doesn't take away from what people are saying about Bibi Netanyahu and Israel having too much of an influence on our government. So when Nick brings up Charlie Kirk and Nick brings up how Candace Owens are presenting Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson's presenting Charlie Kirk as not liking Bibi Netanyahu and being more America first, like Nick said at the end, he's still giving Charlie Kirk a lot of respect. But it also has to be very clear that Charlie Kirk was very, very, very pro-Israel. And y'all do what y'all want to do, but it's a difference when you're pushing these messages in private in your conversations with your friends like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Dave Smith, than having the courage. Not saying that he didn't have the courage, but maybe he just didn't feel as strongly about it. What I'm saying when it comes to courage is the courage that Nick has to then call this stuff out. This is why he's banned. A lot of people, even the message that I got from the person that I was talking about, my homegirl, a lot of people think that he's banned because he's a sexist or he's a racist. I don't think he's banned because of that. I think he's banned because he's been calling out Israel and saying things about Jewish people. Whether you agree with them or not, I think that's why he's banned. So if that's why he's banned, then just say that. I always question when you're trying to frame it as, oh, he's racist, he's sexist. Like, oh, he's racist, so therefore black people don't even listen to him. We already vetted him. Don't worry, you don't even need to check him out. That's what I really see happening. So Nick feels that he's being framed right now. It's kind of hard to think otherwise, especially when we watch Ben Shapiro go up there and say, yeah, it's leftist. We know that for sure. But then when somebody enters in, oh, well, what if it's a Groyper? Oh, yeah, we can consider that too. He's being framed. All of these people that do not like him are banding together. And Nick, as he was finishing up and he's saying like with Milo and he's saying all these different connections, I'm interested to see what's going to happen with the American Jewish population. And Milo put up a post on X that I just happened to see. I was doing a little research while Nick was talking. And he said something, I don't want to quote it word for word, but that the tide is starting to move in Candace and Tucker's favor. I don't know who he's referring to, but perhaps there's going to be a transition of sorts where now there's a lot of people here in America, like we've been saying, I think Megyn Kelly was saying it. A lot of people have been saying that the people under 30, the young people, they're not with this pro-Israel, Israel first, funding Israel wars. They're not with that. Charlie Kirk had a lot of that young population. And with everybody jumping out of, nowhere, trying to act as if they're going to fill Charlie Kirk's spot, whether it's Rabbi Shmuley, whether it's Ben Shapiro, whether it's Milo, they know that population is not for the things that they are for. Ben Shapiro knows that Charlie Kirk's population does not agree with Ben Shapiro. They're not aligned with Ben Shapiro. They liked Charlie Kirk. Let's think about the people that we like and how we'll be okay with certain things and value their opinion so much because we're fans of them that it'll start to move us away from what our principles and morals would have been otherwise. It happens to all of us. Now, when that person is no longer there that they're a fanatic of, you think they're going to turn to Ben Shapiro? No, they're going to turn to a Nick Fuentes more than likely, rather than a Ben Shapiro, a Milo. But these people are trying their best to get Charlie Kirk's following, whether it's Bibi Netanyahu, whether it's Rabbi Shmuley, whether it's Ben Shapiro, whether it's Milo. All of these people are trying to get the young Americans to get on board. And Nick is the biggest thing that presents a challenge to that, I should say, because how young people look at Nick, how Charlie Kirk followers look at Nick. They may have to pick a side between Charlie and Nick and end up going with Charlie. But when Charlie's not here, if it comes down to Nick Fuentes or Ben Shapiro, I guess we'll have to wait and see who they're going to rock with. I guess we'll have to wait and see. So Nick finishes off with saying, that a lot of these people, whether it's Milo, Elon, Candace Owens' husband, George Farmer, they're not Americans. That definitely has to be taken into consideration. You're not Americans. So just like we evaluate people that are Americans and are still putting other countries first, and it seems that they're pledging their allegiance to Israel more than America, when it comes to somebody that's not even American, perhaps we should question that or look at that more directly. So that's what I'll finish off with. These are my thoughts. Nick brings up a lot of great points. Once again, we forget that somebody came to Nick's house trying to kill him. And I didn't hear Elon, like Nick said, or anybody else coming to Nick's aid. And matter of fact, let me actually finish this off with, I wanted to address this because I think Candace Owens, I fear that she's going to lose herself out of her pettiness and dislike for Nick Fuentes. I really do feel that. You know, here you have Nick Fuentes being framed. He's being framed for Charlie Kirk's demise. And he stands up for himself on X and writes a message after not even going live and doing his show the day that Charlie Kirk was killed. Everybody else decided to, oh yeah, let me go on, let me use it to get some views or whatever else, whatever reason they say that they're giving, that they went on and just had to speak on these things. Cool. I'm not saying that they're not genuine. But the things that Candace Owens is claiming that Nick Fuentes is making it all about him, it just doesn't align with his actions. Candace, somebody who's being framed as murdering somebody, I'm pretty sure that you would want to speak up and voice your opinion if that was you in Nick's shoes as well. So Dave Smith decided to actually show support for Nick Fuentes and what he was saying and how he handled the situation responsibly. And obviously Nick Fuentes has spoken out. You know, him and Dave Smith have had their issues. Candace Owens actually talked about that on the show with Nick Fuentes. Why don't you like Dave Smith? And I think we spoke about that on the last show. So I'm not going to go into that situation. But Candace, it's just strange to me. It's just strange to me, but I think it's more emotional than anything else. And it's just the pettiness that's shining through her disdain for Nick. So I think that all of these things need to be addressed, questioned, and like Nick finished off saying, what it comes down to is if we can see things from a political standpoint where I'm American, not I'm left, not I'm right, not I'm conservative, not I'm liberal, not I'm Democrat, I'm Republican, I am American. That's what I think the majority of us can unite on. So let's focus on that. So once again, appreciate y'all tapping in. We're going to keep the content flowing. We're going to keep the I don't know if you want to call this the new movement, you know, Nick and I's show, of course. We'll keep it pushing. I'll see you on the next one. And of course, I appreciate y'all. All right. I appreciate y'all genuinely. I appreciate all the support that you give, whether it's a view, whether it's any other form of support. Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.